I'm here to talk about WETA, one of the larger employers in Arlington. We have a budget of $70 million. We have about 250 employees between the PBS NewsHour and WETA. It probably is closer to about 300. But we're a cultural institution, very much embedded in Arlington, and we consider ourselves, I hope you agree, as one of Arlington's treasures. We are also, I think, if you don't mind my saying so, one of the leading public broadcasters in the nation. So I'd like to share some of my thoughts about the status of public media today, and then I'd like to invite your questions. As I walked in and sort of got transfixed looking outside, I was reminded that my mother and my father were stationed early in World War II and lived at George Mason Drive, So one of the first pictures I have after their wedding in Chicago was they're standing out in front of their naval housing, right about less than a mile maybe from where WETA is. But essentially the children started watching a show called Mr. Rogers, and then another one called Sesame Street. And then all my other friends from around the country with kids under 3 were watching the same stuff. I had a Friday night addiction with Washington Week in Review. And I love history, the Adams Chronicles, and Masterpiece Theater, which I've basically never missed once in 40-some years. She explained to me how she and Elizabeth had started public radio and public television. Because let's not forget, these are local institutions. It was individuals like these who started the stations. Did not start as a national organization top down. It did not start as an internationally famous and wealthy organization like the BBC. It started in Houston. It started in Madison, Wisconsin. It started very definitely in Chicago, because Chicago's the kind of place that wasn't going to be more than second or third. And Washington was actually much later down the line, because so who's in charge around here? Is it Washington? Is it Virginia? Is it Maryland? Well, nobody really knew. And luckily, Elizabeth Campbell lived in Arlington. So she got going. We are technically licensed to the district, which is fading as we speak, or fogging in, but it's still beautiful. And she understood in her heart and in her soul and in her spirit the power of public service, the power of media, which she couldn't have defined except as television and radio. And she didn't even think about radio in the beginning. And she knew people were supposed to do the right thing. So in a way, I think her first budget was, just say $50,000, something like that, 75 maybe. But if she would have thought that's manna from heaven, and who needs money? We're doing the right thing. You don't need money to go do the right thing. So relatively few of us have the good fortune to believe in what we do every day and be able to work at what we believe in. But I believe, like Elizabeth, that public television and radio are our great civic institutions. As the country fragments, as the world fragments, as media helps everybody fragment into little teeny tiny niches where you only watch what you believe in. And your mind is made up because you otherwise wouldn't have chosen that station. And therefore, new facts aren't going to change your opinion. That's the current world, I think. I don't want to overstate it, but it wasn't really that way in the 50s. Mrs. Campbell decided to create a cause, and she had one friend in San Francisco who was doing it then. She was in her 60s. She had already worked 40 years. She was a school teacher, but she believed in the mission thing. So do I. There are not many sources of information, but there should be a public source as well as commercial sources. Because we say television was basically created as a service to provide commercials and sell time, occasionally interrupted by a program. And I hate to tell you, in public broadcasting, we say public broadcasting is a series of meetings, occasionally interrupted by a program. But democratic we are. We have local roots, national aspirations. We are located everywhere. We are in every single state. We here feel a particular mission. It is to bring American history alive and to explain what the fog of Washington basically is to the rest of the country, as well as to those of us who are lucky enough to live here. So next year, this history will provide us 50 years of experience. WETA will be 50. We're all about 50, if not a little older, and we've kept the germ alive of what is public television. The virus has spread. It's basically something that's been good for, I think, virtually everybody, children and adults. We've stayed current and relevant, and the funding is a problem, but you get to $70 million one program at a time, one viewer at a time, one listener at a time. If we do something that interests you, catches your attention, to which you will give us your time, we are likely to get a contribution. We actually don't care so much about the size. We care that you believe in us, that you bother to contribute to us, and of course more is better, but that's all right. You're keeping us going, and you keep us doing the things that we're supposed to do. So that's the story of WETA. It's the story of public television and radio, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.